Hello guys and gals, and welcome to Breakpoints. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about breakpoints. And I got a little background footage here for you guys and gals, so hopefully you guys will be able to see that. And you know what, let's bring up my ugly face too. Why not put my ugly face on there? Hello everybody! Hello! So today I'm hoping to tackle a rather complicated subject, and that subject is breakpoints. So, what are breakpoints? What is breakpoints? What are the breakpoints for? If you're a grizzled veteran and you already know what breakpoints are, feel free to skip to the more advanced stuff later on. But we're going to go over exactly what breakpoints are, and my hope is that I will be able to simplify it to the point where everyone watching this video, not just one or two people, but everyone watching this video will be able to understand what breakpoints are. All right. So the first thing that you have to know when you're talking about breakpoints is that Diablo runs on a system of 25 frames per second. Everything in the game is based on that system. If you're familiar with other games like Skyrim actually runs off of its frame rate as well. And if you have modded Skyrim, like I have in the past, you would know that when you modded Skyrim to be able to have more than 30 frames per second, you invariably end up breaking the game because the game runs off of that 30 frames per second. So when you start making the game run off of 60, 120, 240, whatever it is that you're shooting for, the game starts to desync with certain components because those components are running off of the frame rate. And allowing the game to run at a higher frame rate than it's actually capable of is bad. And that is one of the reasons why Diablo II Resurrected seeks to maintain the 25 frames per second frame rate underneath of the surface of everything. Now, of course, they don't want to actually maintain that 25 frames per second because 25 frames per second is awful. If you've ever played a video game that is stuck at 25 frames or drops to 25 frames every now and then, it's sickening. It's a sickening. Ugh. Now, Diablo 2 runs off of these 25 frames, and you might be asking, well, what does that mean? Okay, so I have a graphic here, and hopefully this will explain it in probably the simplest detail. It may not be 100% accurate, okay, but this is essentially what it means, okay? 25 frames equals, think of it as a fraction, all right? So, if you are in a situation where you're trying to figure out how fast your attack is, for whatever reason, you think about it like this, okay? So Diablo 2 is thinking about it as if 25 frames of an animation is 1 full second, all right? Which means that partial frames, so partial as in partial meaning not a whole, so if you remember your fractions from school, a whole number is 25 over 25. So a fraction of this number would be like 24 over 25 or, 1 over 25. Whatever it is, it's a fraction of that number. Now, here's the problem with breakpoints. They cannot be fractions. So it's already a fraction. So 24 over 25 is already a fraction. 23 over 25 is already a fraction. Where we cannot further break it down into more fractions. Okay, so this is where the breakpoints come in, and I'm going to make another illustration here, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so here we have another graphic, and so what you see here is just a simple division, and it's 25 divided by 2 equals 12.5. All right, so you may be thinking, okay, well, he's got a huge reduction in his his attack speed or whatever it is, and he's reducing everything by half. So he's got a huge amount of negative, positive increased attack speed, essentially decreasing his attack rate. Well, the problem with this is very simple. You cannot have half a frame. Okay, there's no such thing as half a frame. All right, so an animation could be composed of anywhere between 17, to 1 frame. All right, So when you are increasing your attack speed, or you are increasing your block speed, or you are increasing your your casting rate, or decreasing your hit recovery, you are decreasing it by chunks, okay? Because it has to be by individual frames of the animation, okay? So when you are decreasing these chunks, they have to be done like you're going to a store and you're buying candy, all right? So, like for instance, let's say a guy has 5 pieces of candy on the table. He has a piece of candy for a penny. He has a piece of candy for 5 pennies. He has a piece of candy for a dime, and he has a piece of candy for a quarter, all right? And I want the piece of candy for a quarter, okay? I pull out all the change I've got in my pocket. I'm counting it out. I've got, I don't have a quarter, but I've got a couple nickels and I've got a couple pennies, and I count out my change, and I've got 24 cents, okay? And this is a very rigid shopkeeper. He is adhering to the rules, and if it's 25 cents and that's all you can't buy it with 24. You need 25, okay? All right, you need 25 cents, and that's it, and no more and no else. So you don't get the 25-cent piece of candy. But what can you get? You can get the 10-cent piece of candy. Now, so basically, if you had, in this example, 24 cents, you would not get the 25-cent piece of candy. And that's how breakpoints work. So when you have the correct amount of increase to get to the next frame, you are able to decrease your fraction. So for instance, if I am 25 over 25, I'm at a full second, right? Well, let's say, for instance, I have the ability to bring down my blocking speed. For instance, if I'm a paladin, I want to bring down my blocking speed to 1 frame. And believe it or not, paladins can do it. So my new fraction would be 1 over 25, right? Well, what does that equal in terms of seconds? Well, you have to perform another calculation on a calculator, or you could go to one of the various IAS or faster blocking speed calculators that float around the internet. So, for instance, we have a fraction of 1 over 25, and that means that it's 1/25th of a second. All right. So you can pretty much just assume that 1/25th of a second is really darn fast. And 1/25th of a second could be converted to milliseconds if you would prefer that, for any of you who may be over in Europe or UK. Maybe you're in Canada and you use milliseconds, whatever it is. All right, so 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds. So 1/25th of a second. So what we're going to take a look at next is we're going to take a look at a very, very good website here. This one is on the Diablo II wiki. All right, so I want to give a shout out where shout out is due, and it is due here. So let me pull this up for all of you guys to see. All right, so what we are going to start with first is blocking speed, increased blocking speed. And as you can see here by the graphic on the screen, I'm trying to see if I can get it big enough for everyone to make sure everyone can see. I can manipulate where it's sitting very nicely. I actually really like OBS for this reason. I was listening to Far Over the Misty Mountains earlier, and love that song. Far over the misty mountains gold. Daniel, you're doing a video. Shut up. Okay, so increased blocking speed is literally how fast you block your attacks, okay? And this is very important because a character goes into a blocking animation if opponent succeeds the hit check, okay? So that somebody attacks you, they go, they're slicing you to death, and your character goes, okay, well, I'm going to block this attack, and the game goes, wait, we need to check and make sure that you can actually block this attack, and then it goes by your percentage. And by the way, it is important to note that when you are running, your blocking percent actually goes down. So we have here the result total blocking is then capped at 75%, meaning that the chance to block cannot be increased above this by any means. This percentage applies to standing still, melee attacking, and walking. Running, however, reduces the chance to 1/3 the original value with a cap of 25% chance to block. Running block equals 1/3 total blocking chance. So very, very bad. Your blocking chance goes down quite a large amount when you're running. Just thought I'd point that out there. All right, so as you can see here, every single character has a different breakpoint frames than the others. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Amazon, because Amazon is very unique. Amazon has 2 different breakpoints for 2 different forms of weapons. All right, so all weapons that are bows, crossbows, 2-handed weapons, which obviously you can't block with 2-handed weapons, as well as spears. So basically we're talking about 1-handed spears, all right, have 1 set of blocking breakpoints. And your 1-handed swinging weapons have an entirely different set of block breakpoints. And the reason for this is because they want you to be penalized for having access to all of the evades, because Amazon has a lot of really beautiful evades, as well as blocking. So they don't want you to have both, okay? They don't want you to have your cake, and they don't want you to eat it too, all right? You're not allowed to have your cake and eat it too. They don't like that. So you can see that Amazon's at 0 when they are using a sword, a mace, any kind of weapon that is a 1-handed swinging weapon, not a stabbing. So spears are stabbing weapons. They're very stabby. They're going to poke you in the eye. 1-handed swinging weapons, however, suffer huge penalties when it comes to blocking speed. So if you are planning to make a tankazon, which uses a shield, I would definitely recommend that you use a spear, not a 1-handed weapon. Because if you use a 1-handed swinging weapon, you're going to have a really large amount of faster blocking to make your shield worthwhile. Otherwise, you might as well not even use a shield, because you're looking at 17 frames at base with a 1-handed swinging weapon on Amazon. Whereas if you use a spear, a javelin, you get 5 frames. All right, so that is a huge difference. So that means that we have 17 over 25. So 17 over 25 is something like, so not as easy to figure out, but this is 680 milliseconds. So pretty slow. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, well, I can block, right? I'm still blocking. 680 milliseconds isn't that slow. But the problem is that you have to block, complete the animation before you can block again, okay? So you're stuck. You're stuck in a loop, essentially. All right, and a big part of the issue is that if you are stuck in this loop, this blocking loop, you've blocked an attack, now you're stuck, you can't do anything, your animation is finishing, somebody else attacks you, you block another attack, your animation is finishing, you can't do anything, you block another attack, your animation is finishing, you can't do anything. You're stuck in a literal loop of blocking where you can't do anything. And if you don't block fast enough, you will essentially get stuck in what is called a block lock. There are other ways that this occurs. So for instance, if we scroll down, you can also look at faster hit recovery. And faster hit recovery also has a stun lock. So if you do not have fast enough hit recovery when a monster hits you, you will take a stun based on 1/12 of your character's hit points. So for instance, let's say you have 1,000 health. If you divide 1,000 by 12, you find out that if a monster hits you for 84 damage or higher, they will trigger a hit recovery stun, or a hit stun animation. And your particular character has to recover from this stun. And if he doesn't recover quickly enough, you are stuck in a stun lock. And this is important because, again, like I was saying with the blocking, if you are stuck in a stun lock, if your animation doesn't finish before they hit you again and cause you to go into another stun lock, you will be stuck. Basically just stuck there until you die. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So hit recovery, as well as faster blocking, are going to come in handy when it comes to keeping yourself alive. Now, of course, if you don't intend to use a shield, then you don't have to build blocking. But even if you don't build blocking, percentage chance, it's probably still a good idea to have at least a little bit of faster block so that you're not stuck in any kind of block loop. A lot of people would say, you know, like for instance on a necromancer, which is one of the worst blocking characters in the game, that you shouldn't build block percentage. And the reason why you shouldn't build block percentage is because their block speed is so slow. So right out of the gate, they're at 11 frames. And to get to something like 5 frames, they would need 86% faster blocking, which is not something that necromancers generally build. You know what I mean? So if you were to build blocking percentage on your necromancer, you would also have to build faster blocking as well. Because if you didn't have probably, let's say according to the chart here, if you didn't have at least 52% faster blocking, you would probably get block locked. And this is a very bad thing, obviously. And if you don't have good block percentage, you're not going to block very often. So the 1 or 2 times that you do block, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And the same thing applies with faster hit recovery. So if we go down and we take a look at faster hit recovery again, you will see that in basically all of the different classes, there are different faster hit recoveries for every single class. And you can see even the mercenaries are here. So we've got the Act 1, 2, 3, and 4, Act 1, 2, 3, and 5 mercenary. There's no Act 4 mercenary. And let's see which one is the worst. So it looks like undoubtedly the worst hit recovery character in the game is the sorceress. At base, she starts at 15 frames, which is pretty darn awful. But with just 30% faster hit recovery, which isn't too bad, she can make it up to 10 frames. I would probably like to get her, a little bit faster than that. But as a sorceress, you shouldn't be getting hit. So if you're playing your character properly, you don't need to worry about it too much. But just because you aren't going to be hit doesn't mean you don't need it. Now, hit recovery is interesting because hit recovery can be dealt with in a multitude of ways. For instance, right off the bat, we see a fraction. Okay, so 1/12 of my current hit point pool equals a hit recovery stun. All right, so what does that mean for us? That means that to avoid a hit recovery stun, one of the ways we could do it is just simply increase our hit points. So the more hit points we have, the better off we are in terms of making sure that a monster's not hitting us for 1/12 of our hit point pool. Because think about it. If I have 1,000 HP, sorry, wrong graphic. If I have 1,000 HP, that's divided by 12. That's 84 health, right? So let's play around with that a little bit. So let's say I was able to get maybe I'm a barbarian, and I was able to get my barbarian up to 5,500 hit points. So I got battle orders, I got battle shouts, I got like an Arcane's Valor on or something like that, it increases my vitality, I'm beefing up my vitality as high as I can get it, right? So let's run the calculation. So how hard does a monster have to hit me to trigger a hit recovery stun when I have 5,500 hit points? So divided by 12. So he has to hit me for 458. 458. And it's a fraction, so chances are it probably rounds up or down. So we could say 457 just to be safe. So the monster has to hit me for 457 damage to trigger a hit recovery stun. So one good way that you can deal with hit recovery stuns is to increase your hit points. Now, hit recovery stuns can also be dealt with in different ways. So there are a lot of various methods that you can deal with hit recovery stuns. And the important thing here is that you deal with them. All right. The important thing is not, dealing with them in a specific way. It's just you need to find a way for your character to deal with hit recovery stuns in a way that works for him or her. And what I mean by this is take, for instance, a paladin. Paladins have 75% chance to block, right? So they're looking at some pretty sweet blocking, faster blocking. They're looking at some pretty sweet blocking chance because there's just amazing blockers all around. And if you are using Holy Shield, you could literally get a 1-frame block with 86 faster blocking, which is certainly achievable. So if they had 75% chance to block, if they have 86 faster blocking, they're looking at a very, very good block, right? Well, think about it in terms of monsters hitting you. So if you're in a group of monsters, there's like 5 monsters around you, and they're all hitting you, and they're all trying to get that 1/12 damage hit recovery stun. Well, it's pretty difficult for them to get that when you're blocking 75% of all the hits that come in. Another way that hit recovery stuns can be dealt with is defense. So defense is the chance for the monster to hit you at all. So if the monster misses you, well, then it's not going to trigger a hit recovery stun either. So you're looking at another form of protection versus hit recovery stuns. And then obviously one of the easiest ways to deal with hit recovery stuns is to increase your faster hit recovery through use of gear. And this allows you to have faster breakpoints. All right, so let's look at each character and let's kind of figure out which ones have pretty good faster hit recovery and which ones are not so great. All right, so we have Amazon here. It starts with an 11 frame. Assassin and Barbarian are both identical, starting with 9 frames. And it looks to me like you could very easily get 4 frames on Amazon Assassin and Barbarian. It might be a little bit more difficult to get 4 frames on an Amazon, so we're looking at 5 frames. So they can do pretty fast. Druid in human form has 2. He has a one-handed swinging penalty and other weapons. And in both of them, it looks like the maximum is probably around 6 or 7. Because in the penalty form, it's 99. You're going to have a hard time getting 99 faster hit recovery. And then 86 in the other form, which is also going to be a little bit difficult to get, but it could be achievable if you're going for it. The bear form has the same as the human form with other weapons, and the druid wolf form has surprisingly good hit recovery. I could definitely see a druid in wolf form getting to 3 frames, so that's pretty good. And if you were a druid and you were using a 2-handed weapon, it might be advisable to get your hit recovery beefed up, because you're not going to be having the shield to block with, right? And then we got Necromancer, which also has a vampire form. That's pretty funny. So pretty bad for the Necromancer. It has the same block points as the Druid in human form. And then we've got the Paladin, which the Paladin has 2 different forms as well. So it's got spear and stabs and then other weapons. So they actually have worse block points or hit recovery breakpoints with spears and staves, so that's interesting. And then all other weapons, they get better ones. So I guess as a paladin, you might want to avoid spears and staves. Not sure exactly why that is like that. Perhaps they don't want paladins using spears for chargedins. So that's a speculation on my part. Then we got Sorceress, who also has pretty nasty hit recovery frames there. And the worst of all the characters seems to be the Act 3 Mercenary with absolutely terrible hit recovery frames. It's no wonder he ends up getting killed all the time, because he probably ends up getting stun locked. Go figure. And the Act 5 has the best hit recovery breakpoints, and the Act 2 is not that great, to be honest. Act 1 beats it out. And that explains why the Act 2 Mercenary has a little bit of trouble until you get him a decent amount of defense. Because as I was saying earlier, the defense helps prevent the hit recoveries. So So as a character who has a really bad frames, breakpoints on his hit recovery, it is definitely one of those characters which you're going to need a high amount of defense or some other method to mitigate that nasty stun lock. And that, since the Act 2 mercenary does not have a shield and therefore cannot block, you are left with only two options: increase his hit recovery and increase his defense. So if you don't increase his hit recovery, you're going to have to increase his defense. And if he runs into any monster that can break through his defense with no problem, he's going to die. And you've probably come across this before. You've probably been doing just fine with your Act 2 mercenary. You're like, okay, I'm doing just fine. He's doing great. We're doing great. We're doing amazing. And then you come across some monster that slices through his defense like it's nothing, and they just murder him. And you're like, how? Like, why did that happen? How did that happen? Well, now you know. It happened because he got stuck in a stun lock. And even if the mercenary has lifesteal and all sorts of good benefits, it doesn't mean anything if he cannot attack, use his lifesteal to recover his hit points. All right, so let's go back up to faster blocking for a minute, and let's take a look at the classes here. So we talked about Amazon and how Amazon has the worst blocking in the game when using one-handed swinging weapons. But definitely the worst in the game, for some reason, is the Druid in bear form. The Druid in bear form has the worst breakpoints, and it would take a massive amount of faster blocking to get the Druid bear up to 5 frames. 109 faster blocking is a lot, and that would be a lot of gear that you would have to have with faster blocking on it to get there. I would say that 65 might be more reasonable. 40 probably more in the realm of reality. Because 65 is stacking, and 40 is just like, oh, I have a really nice shield, and then maybe I have like 10% faster blocking on something else, because a lot of shields actually do have 30% faster blocking on them. Wolf form, again, very nice in terms of shield. So we're looking at the Druid wolf form definitely has the best hit recovery and the best faster blocking breakpoints out of all the Druid forms. So that's very interesting there. All right, and then we see Necromancer has the same as the Druid human form. And then you notice Paladin is just way up there. I mean, even without Holy Shield. Even without Holy Shield, he only needs like 32% faster blocking to reach 3 frames. But with Holy Shield, he doesn't need any, and he's at 2 frames. He's already so fast. And I've personally seen this. I've built faster blocking Paladins, and I've gotten that 1 frame faster blocking, and I went into PvP, and I've fought like Amazons that spam like a guided arrow and things like that will trigger your shield over and over and over again, and I've watched my Paladin go ding, 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 and it's hilarious. It's actually quite amazing just how much damage a Paladin can absorb with his shield, which begs the question, why would you ever build a Paladin that doesn't use a shield when that is one of his main bonuses? So the Paladin gets that bonus as a just baked into his character, right? And then we have the Sorceress here, who the Sorceress also has pretty awful block, but not as awful as, the Necromancer and the human form Druid or the bear form Druid. And a lot of Sorceresses use shields, mainly for those plus to skills, but if you have a shield on, you might want to attack a little bit of faster blocking in there, because it looks to me like a Sorceress could very easily get to 6 frames with 27%. So if you had a nice shield that had 30% faster blocking, you could go from 9 frames to 6 frames with 1 item. Not bad. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is faster cast rate and increased attack speed. All right, so faster cast. Much like all the others, as you can see, every character has different breakpoints, and characters have multiple breakpoints depending on the spells that they cast as well. So for instance, if you look at Sorceress, Sorceress has 2 different breakpoints, one for all spells, essentially, and then one for lightning and chain lightning. So lightning and chain lightning get their own breakpoints, which is very interesting. And even the Act 3 mercenary is down there with his breakpoints. So in terms of worst possible breakpoints, for faster casting, it's the Vampire. When you put on the Trangul's armor, the Vampire has absolutely awful faster casting, with a 0 breakpoint of 23 frames, which is just awful. I mean, that's almost a full second between casts. It's also important to note that certain spells in the game have a delay of 1 second. And when that delay of 1 second is in place, we're going to apply our formula. So the one that we were looking at earlier. And if you take a look at the formula, it's very simple. So 25 over 25 is a whole number, right? So 25 over 25 equals 1 full second, right? Which means that if you have a spell that has a delay of 1 full second, you are 1 full second from your casting time, essentially, or adding it, my bad. And so take, for instance, they give an example here. So FCR equipment will lower the frames required for the actual casting animation, but the 1 second delay will still run for 25 frames after each cast. So, for instance, if your character takes 11 frames to cast a spell that has a 1 second delay, that's 11 plus 25 equals 36 frames per use. If you use faster cast equipment to cut your casting frames to 7, you will still have to wait 7 plus 25 equals 32 to cast again. Saving 4 frames every time you cast a spell will certainly add up over hundreds of casts, but the difference is less noticeable than it is with spells you can spam. So very, very interesting there that it still does have an effect, but it's just not as great of an effect as, for instance, like if you're spamming Lightning Nova or, Frost Nova or something like that, where you've got your faster cast, all the way up to, like 8 frames. Maybe you've got 105% faster cast, or maybe you've managed to get 200% faster cast, and you're down to 7 frames on your casting. So you're going to be spamming your Frost Nova, like a freaking chain gun, right? And this is all very important because as a sorceress, that is your damage. If you're able to cast 1 spell a second that does 1,000 damage, but I'm able to cast 5 spells a second that do 250 damage, I'm beating you because 250 times 5 is 1,250. So I'm doing more damage than you in the same time period. And that's essentially what we're looking at here, is if I can cast my spells faster, I can do more and more damage, and I can definitely take a bigger chunk out of the monster than you. And faster cast is very important for certain classes, like for instance, it's very important for sorceresses. It's very important for like a bone or a poison necromancer. And as you can see here, the necromancer has fairly good faster cast rate. It can manage, necromancers can get to 10 frames fairly easily. I think it's pretty easy to get to 75% faster cast. So 10 frames is not bad at all. And of course they can get to 9 frames if they can manage to grab 125%. Not a lot of these classes actually do have spells. So Amazon, for instance, has very, very few spells. You're talking about Valkyrie, Decoy, I think Improvision counts as a spell. Slow missiles. So I think those in particular might gain a little bit of benefit. And if you happen to have an Enigma and you're teleporting around, faster cast is gonna work for you there. Assassin, faster cast actually doesn't work on their traps. So you actually need attack speed for traps. So that's actually not going to help you very much on Assassin at all. Barbarian, I think it helps with the shouts. And I think that's about it. Druid, I believe it works for the summoning of the creatures, as well as the entire elemental tree. So that's very important there. And it's also important to note that you cannot cast most of those spells when you're in bear or wolf form. So the elemental tree is pretty much going to be stuck to the human faster cast list here, which is the inferior one. So you actually do get casting bonuses for being in bear and wolf form. Unfortunately, you can't really cast anything in bear and wolf form. So there's that. In fact, I'm fairly certain the only spell that you can cast when you're in bear and wolf form is Armageddon. And it has a delay. It has a delay of 1 second, a lot like Meteor. Actually, it might be longer than 1 second now that I think about it. All right, so next on the list is increased attack speed. And increased attack speed is a very complicated subject. I actually have something here that hopefully will explain this a little bit better than how I can. So what I have here is a file that was created by one of our Discord members. His name is TVJF. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, TVJF. And he sent this to me, and I thought this was very interesting. So I'm going to pull this up on stream, and I'm going to show it off to everybody. All right. So what we have here is a file that he's made that kind of explains increased attack speed a little bit better than I can. So we have a legend here, and the legend is gear increased attack speed, skill increased attack speed, weapon speed mod, usually a number between -10 to 10, effective increased attack speed according to FPA Breakpoints charter. All right, so he has weapons in particular here. So for instance, like we have a razor bow, we have composite bows, etc. And so it's kind of like a base calculation. So you have to take the weapon base, so whatever your weapon base is, and that's going to usually be what the speed of the weapon is. So for instance, if it's a very fast attack speed weapon, or a slow attack speed weapon, that's going to determine the number here of -10, etc. Then we have our skill-based increased attack speed. So that would be, for instance, if we had like 35% fanaticism, right? And then we have equipments. So for instance, we have increased attack speed on the weapon itself, and then we have things that are coming from items. So for instance, if we have 30% on our Saigon's glove, so here's several different calculations where he's already input the numbers. So let's go ahead and edit this one back to 0. And let's take a look at his calculations. So he has here a razor bow with -10. So that's what the base of that bow is. No skill IAS. He's using the weapon with the Saigon gloves. So that's 30. So total gear IAS is 40. And then we're looking at an effective IAS of 40. All right. So we're going pretty fast. So let's look over here, and he's got another example. So we have another person using the razor bow. We have the bow with 10, the gloves 30, and then he's also using twitch throw armor, so we get another 20. So we got a total gear IAS of 50, and we're only getting 50 increased attack speed. So that's interesting. And then over here, he's got another one with a composite bow, and this is the Rogue's Bow, and the Rogue's Bow gets a huge increase in attack speed of 50%. We also have the 30 from the Saigon gloves. We're not using twitch throw, though, so we've got nothing from our boots. We got 80% gear IAS, and we're looking at an effective of 58. So it's very interesting there that it changes depending on what weapon you're using. Let's see if we can just plug in some numbers here. So let's say we're using a really slow weapon, and notice it changes. So he has it set up so that everything calculates itself out. So with a very slow weapon under these same exact conditions, we've gone down to 38 effective. So let's run a couple interesting things. So let's go to -10 again. So we're using the Rogue's Bow. You know what? Let's say we're using the twitch throw. We also happen to have full fanaticism. So we've got 35% fanaticism. And we're looking at 99.55. That's a lot. And let's see if we can stack some more in here. So increased attack speed actually doesn't come from a lot of items, but you could probably find it on an amulet. So let's throw in 20% IAS on an amulet. We managed to breach the 105. So as you can see here, increased attack speed is based on your weapon. It has many modifiers. Okay, there are just too many to count. And what I would recommend that you do is pick up a calculator, and I'm going to have one in the description for you all. All right, so here we have a website. This is the Diablo II speed calculator, and this will be down in the description of the video for you guys and gals. And let's take a look. So we're going to run a Zeal Paladin, all right? So we're going to pick Paladin. He's going to be using a... What is he going to be using? It's going to be a one-handed weapon. Let's give him a War Scepter just for the sake of it. And so it's a one-handed swinging weapon with -10. So there we go. The weapon, I managed to find a really nice one with 20% IAS on the weapon, right? And we have the skill that we're going to be using, Zeal, of course. We're going to be using Max Fanaticism, and we're also going to have plus the skill. So we're probably going to have like 25, level 25 Fanaticism. That's fairly easy to say. And then we're going to show our IAS table. All right, here's the pop-up. And as you can see here, it shows Paladin, War Scepter, Zeal, IAS 0, Weapon IAS 20, Fanaticism level 25. So we're looking at increased attack speed here. Attacks per second, 4.16. So looking pretty good there. We could increase that, of course. So let's see if we can make that a little bit better. All right, so let's close this. And let's pretend that we have some increased attack speed. So what else could we have on our self, essentially? So we're going to be using Zeal and increased attack speed. So we've got 30%, we're using Saigons. So let's pretend we're using Saigons, gloves, and like one other piece, so we're getting 30%. We've got Twitch throw on, so we've got 50%, that's a 20%, so 20 plus 50. Or 20 plus 30 is 50. And then what else could we have on? Well, we could have a High Lord's Wrath, right? High Lord's Wrath is 20% IAS plus on all skills. So that's 20% extra, so 50, 60, 70. So we're running 20% on our weapon. We got 70% on our gear. We've got Zeal running. We got level 25 Fanaticism. So let's calculate that out and see what that shows us. So we are looking at attack speed, 50%. So we're at 70% there. So we've got, 5.2 attacks per second. So if you look down here at the bottom of the calculator, you will see something that says 44448 frames per attack, further IAS useless. So what does that mean? That means we've hit the cap. So we have hit the highest possible attack speed that we can possibly get for this particular build. In fact, we could probably dial it back a little bit. So let's see here. So if we take our 70 and bring it down to 50, it's still at cap. So we take our 50 and bring it down to 30. We are still at cap. If we take our 30 and bring it down to 0, we are now no longer at cap. So let's see how much we would need. Let's go to 10. Let's go to 20. So let's go to 15. So it looks like 20% IAS there. So if we are running a Paladin with War Scepter, we have 20% IAS on the weapon. We have 20% IAS on gear. We're running Zeal with a level 25 Fanaticism. We are at cap. So we are at the fastest possible frames that we can get for Paladin. And any further increased attack speed is useless on our character. It's very interesting. Now, when it comes to weapons, every weapon is different. So you know how, like, when we're looking at the breakpoints for faster cast or hit recovery or faster blocking, every single character had a different number of breakpoints. Well, that's essentially what I'm trying to tell you here, is that every weapon in the game has its own breakpoints. And there are a huge number of weapons in the game, which means that you're going to need to check this calculator to figure out where you are anytime you use any particular weapon. As you can see here, we have a rather huge number of weapons on this list, all the way from... Actually, you can't see the list, can you? I just noticed that. For some reason, the list is not visible on the OBS. Well, take my word for it, or if you want to go to the calculator itself, when you click on the drop-down, it has everything from the Ancient Axe and Ancient Sword all the way down to the U-Wand and the Zweihander, and every single one has a different speed. So for instance, let me choose something here. I'm going to choose a Grim Wand. So now you see that it says one-handed swinging weapon has switched to 0. All right, so let's choose something really slow. Let's choose a Maul. So we got a maul. It has a 10, so that's probably one of the slowest weapons in the game. A martel de fer is 20. Let's see what else we got here. We got a mythical sword, which is 0. We got the quarterstaff, 0. Pole axe is 10. We've got the ogre axe, that's 0. And so forth and so on. And you can do this for every single item in the game. Like, for instance, here's a tulwar, one-handed swinging weapon with 20. So very, very interesting here that every single weapon essentially has different breakpoints, because every single weapon has a different base speed, and you're going to need more or less increased attack speed to get that weapon to its fastest possible speed. Zeal paladins are very fun because you can build fanaticism, you can use zeal, which already increases your attacks, you can stack on a little bit of IAS, and you can get yourself all the way to the cap. But as you can see right now, where we were capped before when we were using a war scepter, we are no longer capped with the tulwar. So for instance, if we were to cap ourselves with the tulwar, we might have to go back to our 70% build. And we're still not there. So let's go a little bit further. Let's take it to 100 IAS. So 100 was a little bit too much, perhaps. So let's go to 90, 95. Nope, 100 was actually just the right amount. So basically, if you were to use this really slow weapon, the tulwar, with a paladin, and then the tulwar had 20% IAS, and you had level 25 zeal, you would still need 100% increased attack speed on top of that from equipment to get yourself to that beautiful, beautiful cap level where you're attacking as fast as you possibly can. So as you can see, the weapon really makes a huge difference. If you were using something super, super fast, like for instance a dirk, dirks have a very fast speed of 0, or I could have sworn there was something in the game that was -10 base. I thought that was the dagger. Dagger? Oh, there we go. Dagger is -20. All right, so let's take a look, and we're going to take the IAS down to 0, and you'll see here that we don't even need increased attack speed with the dagger. The dagger is already capping us out as fast as we possibly can. In fact, we might not even need increased attack speed on the weapon. And I think I've ranted enough on increased attack speed, and honestly, I think I've made my point that increased attack speed is something that is extremely complicated. And you're going to have to input your weapon. You're going to have to figure out how much increased attack speed you're going to need from various sources before you go forward, especially with skills. So specific skills have slower attacks or faster attacks than others. So I hope that you've gotten the understanding that the breakpoints are sort of a special thing in Diablo 2. And I hope what I've impressed upon you more than anything is that you can waste points in breakpoints that you're never going to complete them in. So, you know, if you have a breakpoint that, you know, you're not going to hit that next breakpoint till 200, you know, increased attack speed, or 200, you know, faster cast rate, or whatever it is, there's no reason to sit around with, you know, 190% on your character, wasting all those precious slots for faster cast when you're not getting any benefit from it. Take a look at the chart, take a look at the breakpoints, and look where you can feasibly get to, you know, and then get there. And then try and figure out how maybe you can get to the next breakpoint. And if you can do it without sacrificing, you know, too much of your health and your mana and your damage, then do it. You know, hitting that next breakpoint might be a big deal for your character. Maybe not so much for faster hit recovery, but things like increased attack speed and faster cast rate are definitely going to make a huge difference on your DPS, as well as hit recovery is going to make a huge difference in your survivability. You definitely want to make sure that you have a good balance of everything. You know, as a sorceress, I have definitely gotten stuck in a couple hit recovery loops, and it is no fun. You can be in a situation like, for instance, this Amazon is in right now, and you can't get out. You will not be able to get out. You'll be stuck there, and they will just keep hit recovering, looping you forever. Well, I think I've talked for like 40 minutes. I don't even know how long, but it's been a while. And I think I've covered just about everything that I could possibly cover on faster hit recovery, you know, faster cast rate, faster blocking and increased attack speed. I think the last thing that I want to cover here is the abbreviations. So let me go ahead and put those up on the screen. All right, so what you see up on the screen is a very simple representation of the abbreviations for those things. People don't like typing in faster cast rate. They want to type in FCR. People don't want to type in faster blocking rate. They want to type in FBR. Now, granted, when you're saying it out loud, the number of the number of syllables is the same. So FCR is the same as faster cast rate. Well, you got one more, so faster. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're cutting one syllable out, but I think I'd probably still say faster cast rate. But when you're typing it in and you're talking to people about Diablo 2, you could type in FCR, FBR, FHR, and IAS. And when you do that, when you see other people doing that now, you'll know, what they mean. Oh, what does he mean by FCR? What does he mean by FBR? What does he mean by FHR? What does he mean by IAS? Well, there it is. There it is right there for everybody to see, plain as day. All right, now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my Diablo 2 game, and I'm going to pull up a sorceress. And on my sorceress, I'm going to have a variety of faster cast equipment, and I'm going to show you what it's like to have, 0 all the way up to cap. And we're going to play around with that for a minute. All right, so we have taken the practical test, and we have learned everything we need to know, and now we are going to put our knowledge to the test. So we know what the sorceress's breakpoints are, and I have gone ahead and modified a few items to meet those exact requirements. So for instance, we currently have 0 faster cast from our equipment. Oh, we got 10%. Oh, there we go. We got 0 faster cast from our equipment. I even modified Talrash's little side to give 0. All right, and here we have a collection of Talrash's orbs, swirling crystals, sorry, to give the appropriate amount of faster cast to hit each breakpoint. So we have 10%, 20%, we have a 37%, we have a 63%, we have 105%, and then I also have a belt here, which I've modified to give me a good amount of faster cast as well. This one, 100%. So when we put on in combination the 105 plus the 100 on the belt, we will hit the 200 cap, which will bring us to the fastest faster cast possible. So first, let's test out what it's like to have 0 faster cast. All right, so that's our 0 faster cast rate. All right, now for dramatic effect, let's throw on the 2 items which bring us to the cap so we can compare. Pretty big difference, right? Huge difference. All right, so now let's go up the tree slowly. Okay, so let's flip these back around here. So we've got our 10%. This is 10% faster cast. Oops, sorry, hold on. This is 10% faster cast. All right. Now we're going to go to our next breakpoint, which is 37. So you see we have a pretty good speed going on here, and not too hard to get to at 37%. It's actually quite easy to get to, right? All right. So now we're going to go to our next breakpoint, which is 63%. Notice we've gone up quite a bit in speed. And then we're going to go to our next breakpoint, which is, I believe it's 100 and... It's just 100, I think. Yeah. So there we go. We've got our 100. All right, and now we're going to go to our last breakpoint again, which is our 100%, or 200%. So look at the difference between 200% and 0. All right, let's play around with some other abilities. So, what's a really good one to spam? Fireball. So if you look at that, look how many fireballs we're getting off before they even leave the screen. That's literally 5 fireballs. Was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I think it's 4 or 5 fireballs right before the tail edge of it leaves the screen, right? So let's take off our faster cast. Let's go back and let's take a look what it's like to have 0. 2. 2 before they leave the screen. So it means I'm getting essentially double the speed, which also means double the damage, because if I can cast more fireballs, that means I'm doing more damage, right? All right, let's look at another skill. Let's Frost Nova, for instance. So that's 0%. And this would be our cap. So 200. Look at the difference. All right, and this affects everything. So let's say we're trying to teleport. So let's go ahead and grab our teleport skill. Let's take off our faster cast. All right. So we're going to teleport around. All right. Pretty. It's useful. Teleport is always useful, no matter how fast you're casting it. But it's slow. It's very, very slow, right? Let's throw our faster cast back on. Let's throw our 200%. It's pretty ridiculous, right? Now I'm in Rogue Encampment. Teleport right into Rogue Encampment. Alright, let's look at some other abilities real quick. So, Chain Lightning and Lightning have different cast rates, but 200% will still give me pretty high. You can't even see a gap between the lightning bolts. Now let's go to our 0%. Definitely a gap between the lightning bolts. Much, much, much slower. Let's try out Chain Lightning. Very, very slow. I believe Inferno even is affected by faster cast rate. Let me just double check this because it's been a while since I checked. So you see the number of puffs. I'm pretty sure the faster cast rate increases the number of puffs. Let me just double check this. Yes, there are definitely more puffs. I can't quantify the number of puffs because they kind of look like Cheetos, but there definitely is more puffs. So let me go back down to 0 because I can kind of count them when it's at 0. Hold on. It's like what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's like one. Like I say, like 4 per second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It almost seems like 5 or 6 per second with the faster cast. Of course, it's still not going to make Inferno worth using. I hate to tell you. That's terrible. Let's try 1 or 2 other skills real quick. All right, so Static Field is actually an interesting one to talk about in terms of faster cast, because Static Field is a huge detriment to the HP pool of any monster nearby. But how fast can you cast it? So, for instance, if I'm running 0% faster cast, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Takes a long time. However, if I was running 100% faster cast, 200% faster cast, as you can see, quite a difference. Although I'm not really sure why it's not hurting them. Maybe they have I think they might have too low HP to even be hurt by this ability. Because they're basically Act 1 Bloodmore monsters, so they don't really have very much HP to begin with. Like 1 or 2 hit points, probably tops. That's probably it. And then, of course, we were talking earlier about how abilities that have a delay also are affected by faster cast, but not as a greater degree. So, for instance, let's take a look at a 0% faster cast Meteor. So 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. So it's basically about 2 seconds between casts, which is pretty awful considering you can spam Novas like literally like 3 a second. And then if we try it with our 200% faster cast, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, it's still about the same. A little bit faster. It is a little bit faster, but it's barely even noticeable. And there's a lot of abilities that Sorceress has that are like that. For instance, Hydras can only be cast after a certain period of time. So with faster cast, we're able to get up 6. So 6 Hydras up at the same time. That's actually a really good way of looking at this. So with 0% faster cast, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're able to get up 6. I guess 6 must just be the limit. It doesn't really say. Well, I think 5 is the limit, and the 6th one disappears. That's what it is. With a duration of 10 seconds. So 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000. Yeah, it's... Yeah, I think it is both. I think they're only allowed to be up for 10 seconds, and also there's only allowed to be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because as soon as you cast the 6th one... No? The 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000. That one should be disappearing. Yeah. I'm gonna spam some more Novas. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Glacial Spike could be fun to spam. Let's try that. All right, let's try it with 0. Pretty big difference, right? Pretty big difference. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video on breakpoints and a little practical application of those breakpoints. As always, I appreciate you guys watching my videos, and keep watching.
He's a little booty. He's a little booty, aren't you? That's a cute little booty.